What is going on, family? And welcome to another episode of the Learning Manhood podcast. I am excited today. I hope you guys have been excited about me doing some more interviews and getting to know more people in the community. And today I've got a topic that, like, myself and my guest were talking about, and we're both very excited to talk about it because we've both kind of been through this thing. So welcome to the Learning Manhood podcast, where we focus on building your mental health and growing your spiritual wealth. Today, I have a special guest, and today we're going to talk about solitude and strength. And so my guest today is a man of God, is a husband, a father. Look at him go. Like, you can already see him, like, just dad moding it up, man. He is a personal trainer. You see the guns. Like, you see my man. He is not playing, right? My brother in faith, man, Cody Collins. So give it up for my man, Cody.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, dude. I really appreciate it. I'm super pumped to be here. I've listened to your show a ton, and a big reason they wanted to be on was just having so many of those like aha moments where I realized you and I had gone through in our own way really similar stuff. Especially in lower moments, listening to you and just it was just cool to know that somebody is out there like experiencing, like I said, very similar in their own way.
I appreciate that, man. Like, that's really, I try to be as vulnerable and as open as possible, like, for this exact thing, because this ministry kind of started with the idea that I was in one of my lowest places in life, and I was just like, man, like, I wish I had brothers. Like, I wish I had somebody that can tell me that they've been through this. And so I was like, you know what? We're gonna create the space, and we're gonna talk about all the crap we've been through.
No, I love it, man. It's inspiring because, yeah, I mean, like you said, vulnerable is the word because it's really hard to. I've had similar thoughts, and it's hard to take that leap to actually like put your stuff out there. You know what I mean? But I mean, I think it's a good thing because once you do, you realize that there's a ton of people also going through it.
I promise you that, man. And it's brothers like you that just, hit me up and be like, hey, man, I love this episode. Like, that's because sometimes, you upload it and you just be like, oh, Lord, is that too far? But
Right.
then, like, somebody hits me up and was like, hey, man, I love this. And I was like, okay, if one person, I don't care. If it's one person that got something from it, then we doing all right.
That's
But
so true.
I wanna kind of get into a little bit of your background before we get started. Get the audience a chance to understand who you are. So can you share with us a little bit about your story, a little bit of your journey as a husband, as a father? Like, you got new baby with you, right? You're a personal fitness coach. Like, you're juggling all the things. Like, you're the epitome of dad life right now. So
Right.
how do all these roles like influence each other for you?
They do, man. I mean, it's like so. I run my own business. I run a fitness business, and I have for since 2018 now.
Okay.
So growing a lot through that. I was not mature enough to be there when I started it, but I'm a lot better today. But I don't know, there's responsibilities like that and like having kids. They kind of just force you to be the man you have to be to fulfill that
Yeah.
role. In terms of business, literally like they're not giving away water and lights, right? So
Yeah.
lights can go off if you're not who you need to be, especially, the type of work I do, fitness, and all my clients know we go way deeper than that. I don't just, it's not just muscles for me. It's more of like the spiritual connection too. So,
Yeah.
if I'm being inauthentic and not living at least what I want for myself, then that shows through in my work, and it has.
Hmm.
And that's been, learning times for me. Kids are the same way. Obviously, even if you don't feel like it on most days, you have to at least show up
Yeah.
and do your best. And even though they're little like this, and we have a 2-year-old, even though they may not understand it quite yet, you can feel it when you lay down at night. You're like, man, I was short, or whatever it is, whatever the
Yep.
case may be. So yeah, it's just things like this that make life awesome and beautiful, and what life is. But they're checks for you, man. So I have to just kind of be my most authentic, my best self to thrive in all of the areas.
Absolutely, man. And one thing I love to run. And while I have seasons where I don't do a lot with my physical fitness, and I find that it's very much our physical fitness journey is much like our fatherhood journey, much like our spiritual journey. Is like once you stop actually working at it, like everything about it hurts, right?
Of
And so
course.
we have to, like you said, you got to show up even when you don't feel like it and put the reps in. You, for me, it's like the hardest part of going for a run is lacing them up and getting out the door, right? Like if
Right.
you can get out the door, it don't matter how good or bad that run is, you making progress, right? And so I really appreciate that you bring that up, especially when it comes to fatherhood. It's just like you gotta look at it and be like, all right, I what didn't I do today? Like this is like going back and looking at your form. Like how did I not maximize my performance on these reps today? Like how can I go back and do it better next time? And it's
Right.
really, really important to be reflective about these things. And a lot of us as men forget to be that kind of self-reflective. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But we recently talked about how you went through a period of solitude. And it's interesting that that is something that you've been dealing with or that you went through because there's a lot of biblical references for solitude. And
Mhm.
I just kind of wanted to see what that was like. How did that affect your mental health? How did that affect your ability to parent and husband and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was tough, man. So I was kind of coming off of a hot streak, I guess. In my business, I had climbed whatever the ladder may be to where I was running my own studio,
Nice.
going from people's homes and made my way up from there. And that was like, I call it now like the peak of the mountain. Looking back, I was definitely not the best at person that I could have been, in terms of just maturity and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
financially and business wise, I had kind of peaked it. So that was awesome. And then once we hit that mark, man, it's dramatic to say life has been a gradual decline, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of had in some ways, like we moved, so we sold the studio and everything, and that was fine. So I started back over at the bottom and got into a different one. It really wasn't a good fit. And slowly I could kind of see the writing on the wall that like things were changing.
Yeah.
And through that, I lost a lot of my community. So, at the original studio, we had a ton of tight friends and everything
Mm-hmm.
working with us, which was fun. But yeah, it very much quickly became a one man show. So I kind of had to turn in and figure out who I was when all the music was down and the friends weren't there and that sort of thing. And the guy who I found was, not who I thought he was. I realized he was. I was running a lot of validation, which was not.
Mm.
Okay, we're back. I'm so sorry about that, man.
Hey man, look, if there is ever a place where you ain't never gotta apologize for being dad, is right here with me, man.
Sorry, he had his evening poop, so that was the problem.
Yep, that
Does
look, I went through that stage and I do not miss it, man. So like I feel you. It is all good. It is all good. Um
okay, I guess I'll try to make this like cuttable or whatever. Let's see. So the okay, so yeah, so coming off of that kind of peak of having my own place and around friends and everything, I was forced into this slowly but surely this time of isolation is the only way to put it. So I was back on the road with just me going to clients and stuff. And long story short, spending a lot of time with myself, quickly realized that there was a lot of growth that I had just kind of circumvented, I guess. Like I didn't really
mhm.
go through any of it. I was too busy in that decade of building, of just kind of getting wins and wins and wins and
Mhm.
climbing the ladder and whatever, that I was able to push a lot of stuff to the side that was kind of coming back up now
Yeah.
that I was by myself. And couple that with becoming a father for the first time. I have a lot of regret for my my first child's first year, because, like I told you, I was gone all the
Yeah.
time working, and then being now in postpartum number two with this one. I see how much work it is,
Yeah.
physical and emotional, and I'm like, man, I really kind of dropped the ball with that one. But you got to pay the bills, and I don't know. It's a hard time, but just the things like that I wouldn't have thought of
Yeah.
previously. I think God put this new like gear in my head where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you got to start thinking about the people around you who
Yeah.
make your life even what it is. That outside of money or work or anything like that, like the people who matter is what you need to start focusing on. And I had to learn by myself in a lot of ways how to take care of those people. And I'm still learning, definitely.
Yeah, that's you said a lot of good stuff in there, and like the first thing I really wanted to touch on was that space where we find ourselves, especially as men, being very very distracted by the hustle, right? The
Oh
next
yeah,
thing we got to do. We have been raised to believe our job is to go kill the animal, bring home the bacon, right? Like,
right.
and so we get really focused on that, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and we hit this rock bottom space, and it's like, I don't actually like myself. I have so much about me that I just don't like, and I've just been able to ignore for so long because I've been working so hard. And so
Yeah,
God put you in this place where it's just like, I need you to look at you, right? And that
so
is a
right.
scary place to be in. And a lot of people, especially in the day and age of social media and all that stuff, a lot of people find so every excuse to not look at themselves,
Yeah,
every excuse to find something to drown out the noise that's in your head without actually sitting down and parsing through it. First of all, that's amazing that you had to, that you sat down and did that, and you really began to start looking. And then you were self-reflective enough to see that I have a wife who dealt with so much without me. Like, wow, like
yeah,
that is when I talk about introspective Cody, my man, like you are going in, and I love it. This is
yeah,
what we need to be able to peel back the layers in our own life, man. Like this is exactly what we need. And so this period of solitude got you there. And while I don't want the listener to think, oh, I just need to cut off everyone in my life and just go off into the wilderness by myself. No, no. There is periods of solitude. You don't live
right.
in solitude, right?
That's
Because
right.
you talked about how like you were going through this period, but then within that period you were working on you, and then the first thing that came to you was, hey, I really got to focus on my house, like
Mhm.
my family, these kids. Like I really, really got to focus on that. And so,
Yeah, and I don't even want to take honestly any credit for it because I don't. If it were up to me, I definitely would have followed down the path that was
oh,
quickly diminishing returns, right? So I completely give all of the credit up to God for that because
absolutely.
I like my shiny things, or at least I did at that time more so than now, I think. So I would have kept right on, just like the next thing, and it physics. I mean, there was so much wrong about that time in my life that I couldn't see, which
Yeah.
is so crazy because now I look back and I'm a year and a half removed, and I'm just like a way different person
Yeah.
entirely. Spiritually, it was I was pretty mute. Physically, I was quickly going downhill, even though whatever fitness guy and stuff. But I mean, hours put in work and
Mm-hmm.
abusing caffeine and not sleeping and eating when you can, it takes a toll on you. So I I think in a lot of ways, I have two ideas. I don't know if they're right, but one, I think that was divine intervention to save me
Mm-hmm.
from myself in a big way because I don't think I would have. I mean, I don't know if I would have physically made it
Yeah.
much longer and down that path. I know spiritually and emotionally and family wise, I wouldn't have made it much longer. But the other side of it, I think that this is kind of part of where maybe we'll talk about this, but like purpose kind of comes in too because
Mm.
I have always been pretty introspective, but I've always been really embarrassed, like you said, vulnerable to talk about it. But now it's like I have all this experience, and I've talked to other, men friends of mine, and they've kind of gone through similar experiences, where it's like, okay, maybe this is kind of shining a light into the next maybe decade of my life, however
Yeah.
long. That those are my two thoughts on it. But yeah, I don't want to take any credit for it because I definitely wouldn't have chosen it for
Yeah.
myself.
I tell people that all the time. It's just like, man, like I would not have chosen this for me. Like before I started doing this, like I barely even had a Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Like I barely had any of this. I would not have chosen this for myself.
Yeah.
But to come back to your second point, I'm a firm believer in that you go through things specifically to be there to lift someone up going through it. And so we go through these things, and unfortunately, a lot of times we have to go through it alone and we hate it. And so now we have the responsibility to turn around and say, hey, I went through this thing that you're going through right now. Even if I can't physically, mentally, spiritually help you, I can at least give you the understanding that someone gets you, that someone
That's
sees you,
right.
that someone's been through this. Like, because most of us go through this crap by ourselves and it's awful, right? And
Yeah, I
so,
mean, and even just having the internet is so crazy. You know,
yeah,
I'm not exactly sure where you guys are, but the fact that I can connect with someone in you that's I don't even know where he is. I don't even know where you live. You know what I
I'm out in
mean? And be like,
California right now.
yeah. So it's like, I mean, someone states and states and states away.
Yeah.
That's like that's. I mean, like I said in the beginning, then those moments that's really low. It's like you're looking for any kind of low hanging fruit, and
Hmm.
yeah, I can't imagine having to go through it without even the internet. As
Yeah.
silly as that
Yeah.
may sound, you know.
And so with that, like that's kind of why community is important, because even when you're in that space of solitude, you could reach out to people and be like, "Hey, I need a lifeline at this moment. Like this is where I need to take an opportunity to ask for help." Like and with community, you find yourself stepping away from people. People notice, right? And
Right.
so that's why
Yep.
we kind of want to cultivate this space. But I really want to talk about how what you learned, you obviously have taken a lot from that period of solitude. How do you
Yeah.
incorporate solitude in personal time with Christ now in your relationship with your wife and with your business? Like, how do you utilize that solitude now?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It people talk about like the fear of God,
Hmm.
and that I think through this phase, I really learned that that's a very real thing, and I
Hmm.
use it as a check for myself a lot. And again, obviously not being perfect at all, I make mistakes, and you know, I say things I shouldn't say, and
Oh yeah.
whatever. But at the end of the day, I have this whole new check system, checks and balances within myself. That I it's like the fear of God because I've seen especially at the beginning, you know, because you may have experienced it. You rebel against what you're going through big time.
Hmm.
You're like, no, this is just a phase. This is a
Yep.
bad day. I'm gonna go right back and do the same thing. But man, it when it's talking about like you and the above, it's like a way bigger deal. You know, it's
Oh
not
yeah.
just like I fell on my diet today. Like I'll do better tomorrow. It's like, man, I haven't felt this alone, this empty, this just wrong ever in my life. And as you
Hmm.
start reflecting and reading and learning, you're like, oh, that's because someone's trying to get through to me.
Yeah.
So with that, you know, like I said, thankfully I have this whole new check system where I really like check in and I, you know, even if I start feeling any sort of negative emotion too much, I'll tell my wife and she knows I'm a little crazy. So I have to take my 10 minutes here and there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'll be like, I need 10 minutes to just sit back and gather myself and slow the mind down a little bit. And, you know, I've previously I would have just, again, shoved to the side, powered through, do a workout,
Hmm.
listen to music, something to put it in the shadow. But I don't do that anymore. I try not to leave any part of myself in the shadow and it's an ongoing process, but yeah, I want to explore all those kind of deeper parts in my mind that I've been putting in the corner for so long because that's you know that's when that like inner child stuff comes out and you have a little
Yeah.
outburst and you're like that's I'm 30, like this is not how I should be doing life. So but you don't look at that stuff and then it comes up in an argument with your spouse or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, I have much more so much respect for just the right path now that I feel like I've been shown at least a little more of it at this point, and I take it very seriously. It's not just something that you could do. It's 10 tips for a better life. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this is like the path that
Yep.
for me, at least, it's a real legitimate thing. It's the path it's in your best interest to not go off of it.
Hey, look, I want to tell you right now that I think you are saying some stuff that is really going to help someone break free right now, like being open about the fact that, look, I was feeling lost and empty and alone and just down, and it was someone trying to get my attention. Like, bro, like that is going to resonate with people, and I want you to know that like that's amazing that you are able to articulate it in this way. And I really want to see if you're comfortable. Like, can you take us through what that check looks like now?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy sounding, but I mean, if I'm going down the wrong path,
Hmm.
it's like this weird sense of, I guess the word would be anxiety, maybe.
Yeah.
of just like feeling in your gut that this is not right. It's like it's if I'm like about to step on a snake or something. I don't know. It's that
Yeah.
feeling of like you need to whoa up, man. Like even if I'm starting to get whatever cropping up emotional in my head, it's like something's telling me to whoa back. And then if I, if I spend enough time not listening to that voice, it's like the air leaves the room. If I'm being frank, I mean literally, it's just like it, I don't know. You might be able to tell me, but there's a verse in the Bible where it talks about when Jesus basically says like I never knew you. Basically, is
Yeah.
the gist of it, and I think you
Yeah.
talked about it in a previous podcast. But it's like that feeling of like it's like when Jesus turns away from you. It's like
Yeah.
I never even knew you, man. Like to
Mm-hmm.
go like that feeling of like just emptiness and like by yourselfness. That's kind of it's very dramatic sounding, but that's really how it feels if I'm
No, it
the
sounds
deeper I
super
get down that
dramatic.
path, the wrong.
Y- Yeah, it sounds super dramatic, but there are so many of it. Like, how long did we just was that space normal? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we're just like, you know what? I'm just gonna drink. I'm just gonna smoke. I'm just gonna do whatever to make that feeling go away, or try to
Hmm.
hide myself from that feeling. But it sounds so dramatic, but we live it. Like, there are so many of us right now, grown men that live in this space where it's just like, oh my gosh, like the moment I'm sitting in the car by myself and I'm waiting for the Bluetooth to connect and I'm pulling out of my driveway and there's 30 seconds of silence. I'm dying inside, waiting for something to happen. That is a
Hmm.
real space that a lot of us live in.
Yeah,
It is a real,
right.
real space. And so, first of all, thank you for bringing that up and being open with us about that, because that is so real, and I appreciate you for that. And in this space of solitude, I was kind of alluding to the idea of like, I personally have found that I have to write to be introspective and to have
Mm.
solitude. And so I try to spend my mornings, I get up and I try to write, but when I'm writing, it's generally me actually writing out a prayer, right? It's just me having a
Mm.
conversation with God. And I find that I get distracted really quickly. And so writing makes me stay focused on what it is that I'm actually praying about. And
Yeah.
that in itself, like I'm in my garage, I'm by myself, the house is still asleep. That is me effectively trying to use solitude to make sure that I am prepared for not only my day, but making sure that I'm prepared for my family. Like, so I'm trying to
Right.
see if there's any spaces, because sometimes I feel that way when I run. Like, do you feel that way when you hit the gym by yourself?
Yeah, no, I sometimes in a workout it'll be kind of transcendental like that. For me, honestly, it's taking a nice trip to the curb to take the trash out or something like that. Something
Yeah.
silly, and it's not so much what I'm doing. It's I talk to myself.
Yeah.
Big time. I mean, a huge talker to myself.
Same, bro. Same.
I mean, that's been some of the most uh, I don't know, like groundbreaking moments, at least here lately. Because I don't know, there's something about it. It just takes away all the BS filter, and you're just completely blunt with yourself. And even if in a lot of moments it's been like sitting in my truck, like yelling at the steering wheel, like I don't know what's going on. You
No.
know what I mean? Like even if you have to get raw with yourself in those moments, you come out feeling at least emptied to where you can be filled up again with something else, hopefully. But yeah, just talking to yourself and breaking it down completely, like what's going on right here. Like I'm only comfortable, uh just whatever the case may be, like this is what I'm feeling with. This is what's happening, this is what needs to happen, here's all the expectations of me, and I know I can fill them, but what is it about me that's not right to where I'm not
Yeah.
in alignment with whatever that is. And yeah, and because like at the end of the day, you can't joke around with yourself. I mean, if you're like, no, I'm good,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna brush it off. If it's just you in the trash can, you're gonna be like, no, come on,
No. Yeah.
keep it going. I can lie to you, but I can't really lie to myself.
Can't really lie to yourself, man. That is really good. I I want to encourage people to kind of listen to the words that he's using about taking these small moments, right? We don't have to, like, especially with men during beginning their walk in faith, like they're like, oh, I have to get up at 4 a.m. I have to pray for an
Right.
hour, and that's just unsustainable, right? We have to
Yeah.
give men realistic life, right? And some of that is just five. What is it? It takes you 3 minutes to go to the curb, drop off the trash
Right.
can, and come back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
but even just being able to get that into that habit of taking time to be introspective and to look at yourself and to pray real quick. Those are the things that we really need to do. And these periods of what we're calling in this episode isolation, it's really just you and God in these places.
That's right.
Because one thing you really pointed out that I really wanted to circle back around to is that you grew in your faith during this place of isolation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
had to, like, why do you think you had to grow right there?
Honestly, I think it's because I'm super stubborn, and and looking back in reflection now, I really and truly feel like there's been moments over the last, I don't know, maybe even like 4 years where
Hmm.
there's been little taps on the window
Yep.
for me, and in those taps, yes, on the physical plane, I was getting more and more success or whatever, but on the spiritual plane, it was like this. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like it was subtle at first until it wasn't. And then, like I said, about a year and a half ago, it was just a humongous knock on the door. Um, uh, yeah, sorry, I got off and I just forgot even what you asked me.
I would say that when you were in this space of isolation, like, what was it that made you be like, all right, I have to grow spiritually right now? Like, what was the tipping point to be like, this is the thing that I have to connect
Oh,
with?
yes. Okay, yeah. Well, I was starting to miss moments with my family,
Mm,
because of just being like so uncomfortable in my own skin, and I would have to, again, the word I'll use for it is anxiety, but like I would have to leave family functions or couldn't go to family functions,
hmm.
and again, looking back at it, I think it was a blessing because I think it was like, no, dude, you're not gonna leave the house until you look at this. Like,
Yep.
you're not. I'm not gonna let you go back out into the world the same as you've been for
Hmm.
29 years, like, or whatever young adult life. So I was like, this is kind of what I wanted to get into. I had to like surrender a ton because I've always been very hard charging and control, control, control. Have my hand on the mouse there. But I've had to learn the art of letting go, which is not easy for me at all. Because I was out of answers. Like I couldn't
Hmm.
even. There were moments where I couldn't even leave my house. I was so uncomfortable, and I just was so confused and didn't even know. Depressed maybe is the word. Um, that was, I mean, and I don't give myself any credit for that. Again, I think I'm just so stubborn to the point where I was ignoring those little signs along the way,
Yeah.
where it was just like I was sat down, and it's like if I want to live on, be a father, enjoy these kids that I've been blessed with, enjoy my family I've been blessed with, this life, I'm gonna have to look at the magnifying glass here and fix some things. Thankfully, it's a good thing at the end of the day, but it was hard at the moment.
Yeah. Like, that's, I find myself, like, while you were explaining this, remembering those periods in my life where I didn't want to leave the house, where I was just like, I was having panic attack. Well, what we described as panic attacks was really like that nudge, like, hey, like, stop!
Yep.
I need you to pay attention. And I I stopped doing everything
Yeah.
in that space. I stopped doing everything, and with you having such a large fitness background, I were you still able to work out in these times?
That was the only thing. That I mean, it sounds so crazy and it sounds so like ungrateful, but like I that was the thing I would like look forward to at the day because it was at least something I guess familiar that made
Yeah.
sense in that time. Yeah, that was the only thing I really, outside of like being in the home and taking care of kids and stuff that I could do. It's the only thing about me that was sticking around. I mean, it's a good habit, so it's a good
Yeah.
thing, but like you said, everything stopped outside of
Yeah.
that. Like you said, I mean, literally everything. Like
Do
nothing
you?
about the person that got me to this point.
Hmm.
I didn't care about it anymore. I didn't, associate with it anymore. Complete identity breakdown. Except for the fitness stuff, I guess, because that's just ingrained. But
Yeah. So, like, outside of the challenges and the benefits of solitude, how do you feel physical fitness plays a part into your mental fitness, right? Like, because we talked a lot about how, this period of isolation, and this has grown your ability to have your mental fortitude, right? It's grown you to be ready to attack and be prepared for any of these feelings that come up. How would you say your physical health, your physical fitness has transpired into building up your mental fitness as well?
Hmm. Man, honestly, I don't know which came first in that scenario, the chicken or the egg,
Yeah.
because to me, the fitness thing was like a multiplier. So
Yeah.
I found that if I was wrong spiritually, my
Mm-hmm.
physical energy just like drains. I have none.
Yeah.
So through that, I would have to go in there and do spiritual work. But then once I would find like a low hanging fruit or something like that, or a North
Mm-hmm.
Star of some kind, then the gym would kind of come back around and I would be like, okay, yes. And now looking back, it's like I was learning little tidbits along the way. It's like, okay, you know, whatever, like I would have a breakthrough of like, uh, for me, my vision of a man and a father is like keeping the house clean to the point where you just have to push a chair in if someone's coming over or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, there's some bit of identity that I associate with now. Okay, now when I go to the gym, I'm gonna have like more energy, and I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer. So then that positive cycle would start where
Yeah.
I would have energy, go work out, feel that confidence of like, okay, I'm not dying.
Yeah.
Let me get a good workout in. Okay, that's part of being, a good father in my mind as well. Let me come back, and then when I would go inside, I'd be like, back to the lab. Okay, let's. What else is messed up about me? What else does this new Cody have to
Yeah.
become? And then yeah, because you have to get out of your head. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
you can spend so much time in between your own two ears. And it's hard to talk to your spouse or family about these things because you don't even know what's going on. Much less, how are
Exactly.
they supposed to know?
Exactly. And
Um,
and they come at it from the lens of what you're doing affects me. So it's very
yes,
difficult for them to just hear you, which brings me back to why community is so and so important. So important to have a community of men that you can be like, guys, something ain't right. I don't know what it is, but something ain't right, and if
yeah,
1 out of 10 guys can say, I know exactly what that is, you straight.
right,
So,
yeah.
how has this journey over the past year or two with you translated? Because you were climbing up, right? You got the studio, you got the clients, you were doing great. Boom, we dropped back down, and we
Yeah,
went through this phase. We're on the rise again, right? We're back in action. What
right.
is different about how you treat approaching clients now that you've gotten this newfound mindset? How do you approach? Has your approach to physical fitness changed? Has your approach to addressing to address how your clients are looking at their physical fitness? Because a lot of people,
Mhm.
their why is different, right? And most of the time, our why is wrong. And so, how are you approaching, gaining new clients, and how has this particular mindset changed the way you do business?
Yeah, I have a lot more respect for each person's individual story,
Mm-hmm.
and because, like I said, up to this point, I was able to really mask a lot of things
Yeah.
and not feel a lot of things. So when someone comes to me now and they're like down, feeling like this, nothing's going right, I have a more legitimate respect for like, okay, you're really like, I know that hurt that you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and what that translates to is just being a better coach, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, the muscles and stuff is one thing, but like, yeah, just like talking about like, um, I don't know, like I just have a lot like back when I would be like, okay, you're feeling down. Let's get the body moving. You're going to feel
Yeah.
better, blah, blah, blah. Let's just throw something at it. And at that, being even a younger trainer, it would just kind of be like a one size fits all thing sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever I thought was good at the moment. Like, not for every time, but sometimes that was what it would be. You know what I mean? And so I've learned a lot through this process of like, what's going to serve that person's body more, not
Yeah.
just like, you're a dude, you're gonna feel great if you get big arms or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? Like no, you might be depressed. Plus now your back's hurting because you're sitting around thinking all the time. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, stuff like that. You can get physical with it, but I don't know. I just a lot more of a serious respect for the individual, and just taking it way deeper biceps and legs or whatever.
So I'm going to say this to you, and you might not agree with me. You might not agree with me, but I'm going to say this to you because I believe it. Right? What you're doing is ministry. I want you to know that, like being in this space where you understand where you've come from, and then seeing that in others, and being empathetic to that, and being open to having conversations, and being like, all right, there are some second and third order of effects here that might be stemming from the fact that you're just down. Like you talk about, like, hey, we might be trying to get after these, these cobra lats. We might be trying to get after it,
Yeah.
but if you're sitting around all day because you're depressed, now your back hurts. So now we got to get some core exercise. We got to stretch a little bit more. Like
Yeah.
let's really talk to this, get after this mindset. Like, and so you might not believe it. You ain't even got to agree with me, but I think that is a ministry in itself, because I too think being physically fit is a part of being a dad, right? I've got to
Oh
be able to
yeah.
pick these kids up. I got to be able to chase them around. Like, when I got to a point where, like, I've got one kid that is just, he is my outdoorsy kid. Like, I
Hmm.
can tell the whole house, everyone's grounded. No one's allowed to use devices. He'll be like, yes, let's go outside. Right. He's all about it. And when we were playing a water balloon fight one time, and I ran out of breath chasing him around. I was like, oh no. I was
Yep.
like, no. I was like, I can't have him remember dad just being too tired to play, So I
That's right.
100% agree with you on that. But I want to let you know that when it comes to the physical fitness space, I really, really, really appreciate men of faith in that space, because it is very hard to find someone that understands that there's more to this than just trying to look good naked, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Right.
great goal to have, but there's a lot more to this. And I really appreciate that you're out here and you're doing this for people, and really giving them an opportunity to be ministered to, because while you are being who you are, giving people the fruits of the spirit, you are ministering to them just in the middle of an hour workout, right? Just being patient, just being kind, just being loving, like all these things. Just like, hey, I'm not going to be weird about it. I don't have to shove the Bible down your throat to show you God's love, right?
Right.
And so I appreciate that you're doing that, because I think a lot of times, especially as men, we struggle with evangelism. We struggle with showing people who God is, because we want to always talk about God when really we
Mhm.
just need to show God. And
Right.
part of that for you is literally just having conversation with people as you're working out. It's like, hey, I know you're like, look, your back hurts. You've been sitting around. Let's do something a little different today. Let's not do deadlifts. Like, let's figure
Yeah.
this out,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
I
And
appreciate that.
no, it's true, man. It's so much a thing. It's all so tied together.
Yeah.
There's such an ego letting go of all of this, and that's if I could sum all of it up in one thing, and that's what it is. It's just the dissolving of an ego, and that how that just makes everything kind of make more sense. That's what happened to me, and in people's goals and stuff. I have to talk to people like that all the time. It's like, yeah, you want all of these things, and like you said, your why is often wrong.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, is that even going to serve you? Is that even sustainable? Like whatever it is, but
And now you got my kids walking in.
it's a family
You on
affair.
camera now, buddy? You better, yeah. You
Hello.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Bye bye.
bye bye.
Bye bye.
But yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, man, because it's such a loud world.
yeah,
It's such a loud world, so it's hard to even know like what you want and why you want it. And again, this is not something I take any credit for. I don't I wouldn't have picked any of this out for myself until
yeah,
I met my wife, honestly. So it's like I got, if you want to call it lucky, maybe for a purpose. I'm supposed to tell people about this stuff now, but I just would advocate anybody just as young as you can start, just get quiet. As soon as you have a rational working mind, get quiet. And really, I've been down such a crazy path with trying to find the right way to be and the right person to be, and looking for role models, and it's so hard. But at the end of the day, it's like there's basic principles, and that's where having some sort of faith helps a lot.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, just getting quiet with yourself and not being afraid to be like, yeah, that works for like all these dudes or even gals and stuff, but like that doesn't work for me. Like I don't care
Hmm.
about that kind of stuff, and that's okay. Like I think the more we get in the way, the less we're are being who we were made to be anyway.
Yeah.
So Yeah, you have to be quiet to figure that stuff out.
And that's great because you totally answered my next question. I had two questions that
Ah,
I really wanted to answer, and wanted you to answer that, and they were kind of intertwined. And you answered the first one because I was going to ask, like, what advice would you have for husbands or men who struggle finding that space to be quiet, that space to like have solitude and self care? But you answered it right there, like, don't be afraid to try things and realize, okay, this doesn't work for me. Like Eddie likes to get up first thing in the morning and write. You know, for me, it's because my house is always chaos and it's quiet first thing in the morning, right? And
yeah,
so I like quiet. And so that works for me. It works for me against my will because I hate getting up early in the morning. I absolutely, I can't stand it, but I enjoy quiet more than I enjoy, that little bit of sleeping in. So try
yeah,
things that work for you. And then if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to pivot, right?
yeah.
And so
And
I'm
I would
really glad.
piggyback even and say that like things have a shelf life too. I had to learn
Mhm.
this lesson. What worked for you for 5 years, 10 years, it's going to get you to this place. But like, I think there's even a book called this. It's like what got you here is not going to get you there.
Yep.
So you be okay with, because I was the early bird forever. I was like a 3 or 4 hour sleep guy forever. I mean,
Hmm.
my whole young adult life, that was who I am. And now, you know, I can't get up too early because the babies are in the room with us, and
Yeah.
one will wake the other, and I'm not breastfeeding, so it's like that's
Yeah.
easy for me to say. Well, I'll just get up,
Yeah.
So it's like I had to. That was. It sounds so silly, but that was a really big part of me. I had to let go of. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a blessing because I get to wake up with my babies, but like just having that mindset of like something that's so, especially in fitness, even something that's so awesome that gets you so far will only get you so far. Once it kind of starts sputtering around, it stops working for you. Be okay. That served me. Okay, I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna make.
Hmm.
I may not even know what the new thing is right now, but I have faith it's gonna come. Wait for the new to come, and that's gonna take you to your next level. And the only thing that really is constant in life is change anyway. So that learning that lesson was part of that. Letting go of the old, make room for the new.
That is so real, Cody. I had never even considered that. Like, because I'm like, as you were talking, I was like, you know what? He's got an excellent point because there were times where that isolation was me on, a run because I'm 4 miles away from the house. Like, and so I'm definitely isolated, right? Like,
Yeah.
that was what that space was, and now it's really like me in that space first thing in the morning, and like I didn't even notice that transition happen. Like you are so right, Cody. Look at you dropping gems.
Well, something to come out of it.
So the next question I wanted to ask you is like, how did that period of isolation? And I think this part is really, really important. Like, the other interview that I've done so far, like I talked to Warren G, and he and I talked about a lot
Oh, that's
about
cool.
okay. So Warren G is a friend of mine named Warren Gain, not the rapper Warren G.
I mean, I'm sure he's still cool too, but
I mean, he's good people. Don't get me wrong. He's
yeah.
cool people, but he's anyway. And so we talked a lot about how what surrender being masculine, right? Is surrendering to God a masculine action, and we
Yeah. Oh,
found
wow.
that as we were talking about it, we spent a lot of time talking about using surrender as a form of growing as a leader. So, in this space that you were isolating and getting closer to God and really working on your mental health, how did that impact your ability to lead within your household?
So, I mean, it made me even be able to lead.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have trusted myself, and I wasn't the person to lead 2 years ago
Yeah.
about anything at all. Um, yeah, I mean, because it was all me. Like I was
Hmm.
my North Star, my goals were what drove me. It was nothing of substance. It was just me.
Yeah.
And what do I know? You know what I mean? Like I'm bad at math. You know what I mean? Like how am I going to lead my own life? So yeah, oh my, I mean, surrendering is the only way I could even begin to lead this family. And I have to remind myself that because, I mean, you get in moments of high stress and stuff. You just want to take the reins and I just need to
Hmm.
do this. I need to figure this out. But 9 times out of 10, it really doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just sets you back even further. So yeah, I mean, if you want to take steps forward as a man, I think taking those steps back, so to say, and surrendering is the only way to do it.
Yeah. So you're saying like would you openly say that that was a game changer for the way you moved in your marriage?
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh
yes.
yeah.
100%, man. Again, I don't even. I would go as far as to say I didn't even have like a marriage before this time because it really. I mean, it was, of course, but it was just like two kids that decided to be together and we're
Yeah,
living together and we're doing all this stuff together. But I wasn't. I don't know. Like I don't. It wasn't all
of
bad, of
course.
course, but like largely, I wasn't filling a role. You know what I mean? I was a placeholder, but nowadays I feel like I'm actually like moving the needle, so to speak, as far as like being a husband, at least trying to, and not just like I'm not just in the role because we decided for me to
Yeah.
be. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's made me what I would, in my own standard, call a husband.
Absolutely, man. And I wanted to point that out specifically because there's a lot of us as husbands that are just there, right? We're just placeholders. Like we're just there. They're literally just two young kids trying to figure it out, still working through our trauma, still working through what it
Yeah.
is my job here right now. It's like, yeah, I love you, but I don't know what else that means, right? So
Mm.
I really wanted to touch on the fact that that period of solitude and that period of like reflection really kind of gave you more purpose. We talked about this a lot, right? Purpose coming from that space of solitude. Like there was a
Right.
time before I started this that my life's dream was to open a brewery and like make barbecue and sell beer and have a great time. Like that was my whole life goal.
Mhm.
And I always wanted to do it, but at the same time I knew something wasn't quite like it didn't sit well with me. You know, there was something about it that was like, okay, this will be fun, but maybe this isn't the thing that's going to make me happy forever. And then when I went through
Mhm.
that space where, God stripped everything off of me, he was like, yeah, you like doing this, but what you really like doing, what I really am calling you to do is to reach men. And I love this. I love this. Like I come home from a
Right. Yeah.
full days of work to, hop on a podcast. Like I come home from a full days of work and I'm excited to do this kind of stuff. So I love this. And that's part of the growth that comes from that period of isolation. Like I found purpose in this. I found how to be a better husband from this. I found how to be a better father from this. I found out how to be a better everything from just sitting down, shutting up, and working through my mess.
Right. Yeah, and it's I don't know, maybe this is like a question I can
Yeah.
ask you. I don't know if you've experienced something like it, but it's I feel like I'm in this space now where I like you're saying I had a lifelong dream and I was fortunate enough to accomplish at least my own
Mm-hmm.
version of it. So now I feel like I'm in this like in between space where it's like maybe it's a midlife crisis, I don't know, but it's like I'm what's the next chapter gonna look like? Yes, it's like be a father, take care of kids, that sort of thing, and keep growing in that way. But yeah, it's like my identity and how I relate to the
Mm-hmm.
world is different now. So it's like, have you ever experienced anything
Absolutely.
similar?
My middle space, my space between, oh, I'm not gonna, brew beer and Lord, what is it that I'm actually doing next, was very, very long. Right. It was probably a
Mm.
solid year where I was just doing stuff. Like I was still, I wasn't
Yeah.
as far along as you are with my faith at the time. I was still very young in my faith, trying to just figure it out, still dealing with a lot of trauma. And so it wasn't until I got to a point where I was spending almost every day praying for God, what is my next step? Like, what is the next thing that I'm doing? Because I realized I've been in the military for 18 years now. I've never once asked God what my
Mm.
next move is in the military because someone's going to tell me what my next move is, right? And so when
Yeah,
I
right.
surrendered that and was like, okay, look, God, what is my next move? Like, do I take this opportunity that my boss is trying to give me? Do I like what is it that I really need to focus on? That I found this, right? Like it was me praying and praying and begging and pleading and being like, I want to know what my next step is. And honestly, I think I probably would have got it sooner if I was actually ready for it. But if he would have told me I was
Mm.
doing this and that, if I that first time I asked, I was like, Lord, what is the next step? And he's like, you're going to start a podcast and you're going to do all these things. You're going to get on stage and talk to people about trauma. I would have been like, oh, no, not doing that, So he
Right.
began to spoon feed it to me. He started giving me like people around me, I started to notice, um, like the trauma that I was learning about. I started to notice trauma in other people, and it was breaking my heart. Right? He was giving me a heart for men. Right? And so it was baby steps. First, I was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about your trauma." Then it was like, "Oh, people like this. I need my." Someone asked me to come get on a stage and talk about trauma. I didn't know what to do, so I got on stage and I just talked. Right? But I loved it, and I was like, "Man, okay. So what is the next step? Like how?" And so it was God was spoon feeding it to me. Because if he would have told me this, right,
Right.
I would have never made it here. But it was these little itty bitty steps along the way, and some of it I didn't even recognize along the way, right? Um, but once, if looking back on it, I see that he was just giving me little stuff, one at a time, like this heart for men, and this heart for trauma, this heart for being from a place where I just didn't have anyone I could rely on, and wanting that for other people brought me here. So I would say that for you, like, spend time asking and see what God pricks your heart for. Like, what is it that he wants you to do? Like, what really, one of my pastors used to say that, you really know that you're getting somewhere when what breaks God's heart breaks your heart. And,
Mm.
I started to notice, like there are people in my circle right now that what breaks their heart is homeless. Like, I could walk right past the homeless man. I'll be like, "Hey man, and here's $1 and keep it moving." I think, but for
Yeah.
them, they're like,
Right.
"No, we got to do something right now." Right. And that's not what breaks my heart, but they have found the thing that they resonate with God with. So I would say, look for the thing in your life that you resonate with God with.
That's good. That's really good. Thank you, man. That's
No problem,
awesome.
man. And look, I want to give you, I want to give you an opportunity for parting shots. Like, what is one thing, no matter what it is, off topic, no matter what, that you would want to say to everyone that's listening? If you have an opportunity to tell them straight up, like, what is the one parting shot that you would give them? And then two, I want you to give us, where can we find you? Where can we find more of you? And how can we connect with you?
Yeah. So I think the parting shot would definitely be, um, yeah, respect the journey you're on as a
Mm,
journey. And I've had to learn this, like, know that you're not going to get it all right. It's maybe things feel right in the moment, and you're going to look back in a year and realize that was so embarrassingly wrong. But the main point I would focus on, and I'm trying to have grace with myself on this, is that I don't believe that God wastes
on people.
anything on people. So, even though you may have done dumb things and putting yourself into dumb environments that served you in a shallow way at the moment, but today wouldn't, there's still something that you got from that situation, whatever it may be. So, I guess just take some of the anxiety away about having to get it all
Yeah.
right. Like, use your best judgment. I try to pray so much for discernment, and, like, please don't let me waste
Yeah.
time on whatever false prophet, whatever you want to call it, things that aren't right. I really want that discernment so much. But at the end of the day, if you go left when you should have gone right a couple times, you're going to look back. I think, at least I'm hoping so far, that there was a lesson in that, and some piece of that you need to take with you into today. Um, yeah, that's that. So I guess, and then where to find me? I'm really, really new to all this. I'm re-emerging into the world in a lot of real ways. But I do everything through my social media. So my Instagram, Cody Lane Collins. I'm on Facebook and stuff. It's a lot of fitness stuff. Hopefully more things like this in the future. I'm new, so maybe if you relate, we can follow each other and keep these kind of conversations going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody hop on Instagram, man. Cody's been it's been over a year since me and you have been like going back and forth
Yeah.
on Instagram, like, and he has always been there, like, as a source of encouragement for me as I've been trying to figure this out for myself. So I appreciate you, Cody. Thank you for taking some time with me. Like, this was truly a blessing. Like, I'm looking forward to playing this back and listening to the gems that you dropped. Like, I honestly, I'm not cutting out nothing with the babies. Like, I'm leaving all the kids in. Like, look,
That's
I
fine with
gotta
me.
show you. We gotta show people, like, it's we're just being dads out here, man. Just trying to do everything we can to
Right.
to get it right. So I appreciate you taking some time with me
That's it.
tonight, brother. Like, I really do. Um, Thank you so much. God bless. You know what, family? I don't even know what else to say. Like, I've got so many things I'm thinking about based on this conversation, and I could probably talk for another hour, but we're not going to do that. So
Sure.
until next time, family, God bless. Thank you for joining us. For those of you on YouTube, like, subscribe, join the team, hang out with us so you can always hear when the next one comes out. For the next time Cody hangs out with us. But until next time, y'all, God bless.